Welcome, everyone. My name is Karen Kiefer, and I'm the Associate Director of the Church in the 21st Century Center. And many of you might know that our center is a catalyst and a resource for the renewal of the church. And we provide a lot of resources throughout the year. And we have a magazine. It comes out twice a year, and it embraces a particular theme. And this semester, our C21 Resources is Catholics, the Sacramental People. And when you came in, you probably got an article. It's one of the articles that was actually in the magazine. And we really felt that it was a touchstone for the conversation tonight. There's a lot of curiosity here on campus about marriage and relationships. Hence, I just read the op-ed page of the Heights today, talking about finding a husband at the Heights. But anyway, this should be a really lively conversation. Really excited about kind of capping off our programming with this particular program. Before we get started, I just want to introduce our participants this evening. I'm really thrilled to introduce the three couples first. The first couple is Juliet and Tom Fay, which is right next to Father Terry. The next couple is Edgar Valdez and Alana Valdez. And the next couple at the end is Katie Corey and Dan DeLeo. And Katie and Dan are actually getting married in June. And Edgar and Alana and Juliet and Tom are married. So it should be an interesting conversation. Let me tell you a little bit about Tom and Juliet. Tom and Juliet are Boston College graduates, no surprise. Tom graduated in 1983. Juliet in 1984. They met after they graduated through the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. Juliet went on and she got her master's degree in public policy at the Kennedy School of Government, and Tom went to law school at Catholic University. Tom's now a partner at a Boston law firm, and Juliet is a best-selling fiction writer. As a matter of fact, I fooled her and put some of her books in back. I can just tell you, if you pick up a Juliet Fay book, plan on not sleeping, because you can't put it down. They have 4 children, ages 9 to 18. Alana and Edgar Valdez. Oh, by the way, Juliet and Tom, they've been married 21 years. Alana and Edgar Valdez, they've been married 3 years. They too are Boston College graduates. Alana graduated in 07. Edgar graduated in 04. And they were married at St. Ignatius Church. Alana hails from Brighton. The big joke with Alana is that when she was a freshman here at Boston College, her dorm was further away than her house when she was living in Brighton, grew up in Brighton. Edgar is from Brooklyn, New York. They both share an interest in philosophy. That's actually how they met. Edgar got his PhD in philosophy and is currently a postdoctoral fellow at Seton Hall University. And Alana is finishing up her second master's, this master in philosophy in New York, and teaching at Molloy College in Long Island. They now live in Forest Hills in Queens, New York. I will say that Alana is one of the biggest Red Sox fans I know, as is Edgar. Now, he is not a Yankees fan. Also, Tom Fay, huge Sox fan. There's a baseball theme going on here. Katie and Dan DeLeo. Katie's from Sioux City, Iowa, one of course, Father Neenan's favorite places on earth, and did her undergraduate work at Washington University in St. Louis. Dan's also from St. Louis and did his undergraduate work at Cornell University, and they met at the Catholic Center at Washington University in St. Louis. They both came to Boston College together to study theology at the School of Theology and Ministry. And as I mentioned at the beginning, they will be married on June 22nd. Hopefully after this panel discussion, they will still be married, get married. Anyway, last but certainly not least is one of our jewel Jesuits. His name is Father Terry Devenot. He is Special Assistant to the President and Director of Manresa House, which is right on College Road. And Father Terry has such a great job because what he does is inspire vocations in all of us, either the vocation to priesthood or to be a sister or a brother or to just be a leader as a layperson. He has that special gift. And he is a New England Province Jesuit. He had previously served as Vice President for University Ministries at the University of Scranton and an Associate Chaplain in Campus Ministry at Fairfield University. I'm happy to say that he just celebrated his 25th year as a priest, And he told me that in his first 4 years of being a priest, he celebrated 100 weddings. So is this not the man to lead this discussion? So without further ado, I welcome Father Terry and the group.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, I'll be celebrating 25 years as a priest on May 9th, and it went by rather quickly. And so when I was invited to moderate here tonight, when I saw the topic, I began to wonder, well, like, what do I know about this, you know? And so being here, it's a great opportunity. I said yes right away because, Katie, what's your last name? Corey. I thought she said Katie Couric, so I thought that's why I wanted to be here tonight. I love Katie Couric, but I'm sure we'll love you too. But it's an opportunity to share here this evening in this great event with a couple that is well seasoned in the living out the sacrament of marriage, a couple that is seasoned, and a couple that is pre-seasoned. And so this is a great opportunity for us to be here. And as I look around the room, I recognize that there are a lot of people in a lot of different places and stages in life, be it our students, young and not so young, and I just think it's great that everyone is here. And so this is an opportunity for us to grow in our understanding and awareness of the living out of the sacrament of marriage. Karen and I had a great time sitting down and going through the questions that we would share tonight, and I know they've been shared with each of you as well. And they went from being this big to this big, and they're much smaller, but it just gave me such a great appreciation for who we are as a sacramental people and for who you are as married people and soon-to-be married people. And so tonight, the first question that we have here is that recognizing that marriage does not just happen, that this relationship or the pilgrimage, if you will, begins long before the sacrament is actually confirmed. And so we very happy and interested in hearing, how did your pilgrimage begin? And when did you know you were ready to get married? And so I open that up to each of you.
Well, Tom and I were met through a mutual friend from BC when we returned to the Boston area after school, after the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. And we started dating. Our first date was at a BC football game. And we had dated about 10 months when we started talking about marriage. And I personally was horrified by that, because I thought, that's way too soon. Holy smokes, that is not what I thought was going to happen. And yet I felt this strange confidence in this person. And you know, my own parents were divorced when I was young, and I thought it would take me a long time to get married. I didn't know that I would get married because I was nervous about it. I was hesitant. And I was, Tom made me feel very confident. So I was surprised and a little scared, you know, but.
The word pilgrimage conjures up years before meeting Juliet, meeting different people, and by dating different people, learning what your values are and what values you look for in a person you want to spend the rest of your life with. And dating other people, in my opinion, can't be unappreciated, underestimated as far as how that dating prepares you for the person who you eventually marry. Obviously, there are many people who meet young, high school, and live happy lives, high school sweetheart. But for me, the pilgrimage included dating different people, observing other people who are married, observing people who date, and see what works and what doesn't.
We have a funny story. Edgar and I met in my junior year going into my senior year at BC. Edgar was already out of school and was working at an office on campus. And similar to your story, Juliet was afraid of the word marriage. Like, I didn't want to talk about it. And I was a senior, and we were already dating for a few months, and Edgar had mentioned, like, we started to talk because we were a very serious couple, and I was in my mod. he mentioned marriage, and I freaked out. And I was like, you can't say that word. Like, I'm a senior. I'm living in my mod. Like, there's like someone else's shoes over. There's just like trash everywhere. How can we talk about marriage? That's something so distant and so far away. That terrifies me. And what's funny is it terrified me not because I was afraid or I thought I never wanted to do it, but because a serious relationship can kind of just come out of nowhere and when you least expect it. And I think that in terms of recognizing that is really important, and not kind of moving away from it was something that helped me get over that fear. I don't know if that's accurate, if you would agree with me.
Oh, well,
But-
I guess since we're married, yes, I agree with you, honey.
Smart man.
I mean, we met in March, we started dating in June, and in September, I was at the K Jewelers store trying to pick stuff out. So I knew right away. Yeah, it took a little, not convincing, but I suppose I had to bite my tongue for a little bit and wait to make sure that that Alana felt some of the same things, or was comfortable, wasn't scared by that kind of commitment, I guess, or what that means. I guess there's, especially with the name change and with sort of all that we're aware of, I think culturally it's easier for a man to not think necessarily that his identity is changing so much by the process of marriage, literally keeping my name. But I knew pretty early, and I think in light of this sacrament talk, the way that it fills you, right? I mean, it's a moment of grace, and it hit me, and I knew, and I was ready. So.
Yeah, so reflecting on these stories, something that I was thinking about was about being a confident and strong single person. I think that I knew that I was ready to be married when I knew that I was a confident and independent person, and I was my own whole self, and that this was about Dan and I joining our whole selves and our whole lives together, and that this wasn't my incomplete self latching out and on to someone else. So I think that that has taken a lot of personal reflection and work, and it's had to be something that I've prayed a lot about. And so it's hard to believe that only a couple years ago I was giving a talk and a reflection on what it meant to be confidently single, and trusting that my vocation was going to be whatever, however the Holy Spirit led me and guided me. But when I met Dan, I knew that this was a partnership that I longed for, and that this was right for us. So when we met at the Catholic Student Center last year, it was something where we had a lot of discernments going into it about moving to Boston, and then the next step was then discerning if marriage would be right for us. So.
And while Katie was giving talks about being confidently single, I was discerning a vocation to the Society of Jesus. So I was almost sitting at the other end of the stage tonight, moderating the conversation. But so for me, it was my discernment process. Thinking about the Jesuits was, I guess, almost a 2-year process, and it was really something that I felt strongly called to, and I thought it was almost inevitable. And for me, it was a process. I think you've used the word journey, but I think it was a discernment process. And for me, I was fairly confident, like I said, that I was going to enter the society, and I ended up going on a come and see discernment weekend retreat, and I guess it kind of had the moment of election and using Ignatian words and consolation and desolation. I I kind of thought about, life in the society and life as a vowed religious, and I thought about life as somebody, married and thinking about marriage and family life. And that sense of consolation and peace that I felt when I thought about my life married and as a father, to me was something that I couldn't ignore, and it was ultimately something that it was listening to what I would say is the movement of the Spirit in your heart. And so for me, I absolutely love the Jesuits. I love the society. I love Boston College and the institutions and Ignatian spirituality. But for me, it was that spirituality that actually led me to with the vocation of marriage. And so a week after that discernment retreat, I went to Easter Mass at the Catholic Student Center, and there was a pretty blonde girl singing in the choir, and shortly after we started dating, and so it all just kind of happened, like Alana said, it just kind of happened unexpectedly, so it was definitely a journey and a process.
You make Ignatius very happy. My first several years as a priest, I did a lot of weddings. I was in parish ministry, and the church asked that there be a certain amount of preparation for marriage, and we typically or traditionally call those pre-Cana programs. And when I was in the parish, couples would come back and tell me their experiences of it, and sometimes I would be horrified by their experiences in pre-Cana. And so I went to the director of family life in the Diocese of Springfield and very passionately spoke about the need for quality preparation programs for couples. And so she nodded and nodded and listened and listened. And the more passionate I got, the more I was convincing her that something needed to be done. And at the end, she said, "Why don't you start a program?" And so I did in the parish that I was in, and I got a number of married couples who were at different places in their journey, amount of time being married and all. And I remember we put on a great pre-Cana program for young couples who were preparing for the sacrament. And I was very, very moved when one of the couples gave I can't remember which talk that they had, but the husband of the couple was a big football coach in the city of Springfield. And he looked at the engaged couples and he said, "Surround yourself with goodness. Always, always surround yourself with goodness." And I thought, we can send them home now. But I also recognize just how important it is to have these quality programs. And so couples getting married in the church are asked to do these preparation programs, pre-Cana programs. And so I just ask you now if you could talk about your experience and what would have been helpful as you were preparing for marriage in terms of what the church offered by way of marriage preparation program.
Well, we did the BC Cana program. It's so funny. I sort of feel like we should just leave the time for these guys. It was so long ago, like I can barely remember it. But it was great. It really was very good. I think they did a good job with it. And I remember the one thing I remember is that they do it with married couples. So you're sort of talking to married couples. And this one married couple offered this story. This woman was saying how she. Her mom was over and her husband was doing the dishes and he was dumping loads of soap and it was like bubbles everywhere and stuff, and her mother was horrified, like, he's using too much dish soap. And she said, "Mom, he's washing the dishes." And I remember, like, you're gonna do things differently. It's not you're everybody has their own way of doing things, and the fact that she could recognize that good stuff was happening, even if though there was a lot of dish soap going down the drain, that was the one thing that stuck with me.
Julie's right. It was many years ago when we did pre-Cana, and since then we've been part of panels at pre-Cana at Boston College, which are great experiences as a married couple to 5 years, 8 years prepare for a presentation like that. What I remember about sessions was the practicality of some of them. Things like finances. One person may come from a very poor background. Another person may come from a very wealthy background. They may have a different appreciation for money, the use of money, how money is spent. Right? That's just one example of the practicality of the program. Another program that I felt was useful was how individuals in a marriage or engaged couples deal with disagreement. There's one person, the yeller, expressing feelings left and right, versus the other one being more the turtle, sticking the head in whenever the hail falls, right? And how do you work? How do you work with that? If that dynamic exists, how do you work through that? So, in fact, the way it was set up with multiple couples around many round tables was, in my view, very effective. My father was a deacon here in the Archdiocese, member of the first class, and he was often sought after, like father, to conduct marriages. And he brought his own experience to the table. And as a member of the clergy, that's great. But being in a room full of other engaged couples sharing experiences and ideas, I think is a great model.
We were living in DC. Edgar and I were living in DC when we did our pre-Cana, and ours consisted. It can vary in terms of panel or of weekly events or weekends, but ours was kind of this concentrated retreat. And it was called the Engaged Encounter, and everything had hearts on it. And we were living in DC, and it was right after I graduated from Boston College. And one of the bittersweet things about leaving BC is you don't realize how spoiled you are in terms of the community that you have, especially the community of faith that's right here on campus. And so we have the 10:15 Mass. You've got all these wonderful, concentrated notion of Jesuits here that you can talk to and have conversation partners. And it's a little harder to get after you graduate. And so we were living in DC and kind of missing that community. And it was great to have this engaged encounter and to kind of dive back into that and have it kind of at our services. And I was a retreat nut at BC. I loved going on retreats, so it was just really fun to get back in that mindset, but also to have and engage in a retreat that focuses on very different questions, very intimate questions about, why do you love the person that you love? It's just such a simple question, but having to actually think about it and reflect and write it in your half-timey looking journal, it calls a lot of things, into mind. And I think that the pre-Cana retreat for me, and I think I speak for the both of us, was really wonderful. I would say just one thing that kind of, it wasn't necessarily lacking, but something that I would like to have seen a little more, and this wasn't anything in particular to the organization, but it would have been so cool to maybe have been more in a community with other couples going through the same stuff at the same time. And I don't know if you guys feel like this, but there are times when you're wedding planning and things are crazy, right? And you're just stressed and you kind of lose sight of like, oh, this is a sacrament. We're going to commit to a bigger thing than us. And so it would have been nice to like call some random person and say, can I vent with you? As a couple, can we vent with other couples? And I think that that's something that you have to work at, saying we need to have that community is important.
We went back to St. Louis. We kind of did a one-day intensive with our deacon and his wife, who Katie's known for, I guess, 10 years. So we did it with them, and it was a great experience. I think just listening to their story and drawing on their experience and their wisdom, I guess, was invaluable. I mean, just to be able to have those conversation partners. And then the other thing that was really helpful was the focus test, and then we also did the Myers-Briggs, and then Katie and I separately had done the Enneagram. So I don't know if you all are familiar. I see some head nods. And I think what's so valuable about those is that I wouldn't say they're the end all and be all, but I think they're a helpful tool from the standpoint that I think they help name qualities about yourself and qualities about the other person. It's not so much that you're discovering for the first time that, oh, I'm an introvert and she's an extrovert. If you're discovering that 2 months before you get married, you should probably be reconsidering the engagement. But so it's not that you're discovering new things. It's more that you're getting language to say, oh, I now it makes sense why you approach things like that, or why I respond that way. So I think it was really helpful having a combination of the tools and then also the experience to draw on. So I thought it was a terrific process for us.
Yeah, I will say though, I think that something that is lacking just in the marriage process in general, or just the discernment process, is just this communal nature of how parishes and churches outside of the college community and the college bubble can really help grow couples. You mentioned at the beginning of this talk that the sacrament begins before you stand on that altar, and I just personally have a strong conviction for mentor couples and just a community, and wanting to have that more at the parish level and have that be an experience where couples are sharing this in small faith communities or church communities, and it doesn't feel like it's just two couples going on one weekend, but that this is something throughout, and especially in the first few years of marriage, which I know can be challenging. So that's the only other thing I'll add.
Am I allowed to ask a question? Yes? This was your marriage prep program? They had you do the Myers-Briggs and the Focus and Enneagram?
Yes.
We had done Enneagram before, just the two of us, but they had us do Focus and Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, the priest that marries us, that will be marrying us, is really passionate about the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram.
What's the last one? What's the Enneagram? I've
Oh,
never.
we can get
Oh,
you
okay.
It's awesome.
We'll talk later. It's interesting. I too remember stories from the different pre-Canas that I've worked on through the years, and one of them in particular I remember was speaking about the difficulties that come along, the challenges that come along in the journey. And this one couple who was speaking to the engaged couples, a married couple, they'd been married probably about 20 years at that point, and said that their first challenge happened a week after the honeymoon. And it was when her husband came out of the bathroom and yelled, "Where is my bathrobe?" And she's drinking her coffee, and she goes, like, "I guess I'm wearing it." And he was like furious. And she said she was one of 7 girls, and you just grabbed and put on whatever was there. He was an only child. And she said they almost got a divorce over a bathrobe. But, no one can enter into a marriage or a relationship without recognizing, with really realizing that there will be challenges along the way. And so what do some of these challenges look like? And in the midst of it all, have you ever doubted in the midst of your relationship, this journey with one another?
Well, when Tom and I first got married and we had an apartment together, I had my own room forever. And I was a person who liked having my own space. And I remember one day, it was like a Sunday afternoon or something. I'm sitting in my room and I'm writing or I'm doing stuff or whatever, and he keeps coming and going. And I remember thinking to myself, he needs to go home. What? And then I realized, oh my gosh, he is home. And it was this moment of like, okay, we're going to have to figure out a new way for you to get some space because he lives here. And I really liked him living there, but so I think, and I do think, talking to people, I don't think any marriage is without doubt. I don't think anybody never has a moment where they go, what was I thinking? Like, you really,
He gets to talk next.
Yeah, he'll get me back. But I think it's important for you to know, like, there are tough days, and they're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be able to just sail through this with never a bump in the road, and put 2 people in a small space together, they're going to have conflicts, and as time goes on and life gets more complicated, and time gets, there's less time to be together and to sort those things out, it's very easy to find yourself like, wait a minute, there's some stuff we need to talk about or deal with. It's perfectly normal.
I think in our relationship, our marriages, there are third rail issues, right? Maybe 1, 2, or 3 issues that you will learn as you're married that, wow, it's coming up again. It's coming up again. And as a person who learns quickly that what you've said, what you've done has activated the third rail, you need to learn to understand how to deal with those third rail issues. In my view, the first step is to understand why that's a third rail issue, right? What incident or what experience, family or otherwise, has happened in the past to make it a third rail issue. So during the course of the marriage, then you find ways, you know they're there, and you find ways to avoid that third rail, in a healthy way.
You
I
can
feel
start.
I keep talking for us.
Conflict.
He's joking, kind of. So, I mean, I think you'd be silly to think that there are no challenges in a marriage or in any sort of very serious relationship, but especially marriage, because like you said, it's like, oh, we live together, or, oh, this is our home, this is our space, so it's not just mine, it's also yours, and I think there are times when you're just going to have to pick and choose your battles and which ones are actually worth it, like I'm a neat freak, I like to clean a lot, and Edgar is not so much a neat freak, and he has the dining room table has become our desk, and there's just all this stuff, and we're philosophers, so he's got all these crazy notes about Kant all over the place. And so sometimes I'll just throw it out thinking that it's trash, and it's not trash. And there are ways in which that's always going to be a constant thing for us, and we're always going to have to try to just work at that. And I know it seems silly, and it's just this minuscule aspect of your personalities, but it plays a larger role in terms of how you're going to communicate with one another, how you're going to actually work with each other to kind of just live your life. And I think that, yeah, there are obviously little problems, but life can hit you real hard, really unexpected, and you don't know when terrible things can happen, And the past year for us and our family has been hard, just with some sickness and other drama and finances, and at that time, I don't care about cleaning off the table, right? And I need my husband to help me and to drive me places and to do other things, and
Sounds like a chauffeur.
right? To listen to me when I'm upset or sad. And I think that it's funny. Edgar's really good about being reflective and looking at where we were at a particular point in time. And so I remember I was freaking out about having a paper due or something, and he was like, "Do you remember Cry Fest, October 2011?" Yeah. Okay. And so there's a way in which you can kind of use each other as a team and say, "Hey, we got through this. We can get through a fight about something on the table, or a fight about, or stress about external things that influence our relationship." And it's hard, but it's doable.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that actually it's the challenges and sort of being in the midst of life and these disagreements, we sort of think of them as being somewhat antithetical to a commitment or to a relationship, but they're actually, you sort of need them in the sense of you're not expressing commitment, you're not having an outward expression of God's love without challenges, right? I mean, I know Alana's going to heaven. I think the jury's still out on me, but someday, if we both make it to heaven, I assume it'll be nice and to sort of not have to deal with all the other things in life and all those other sorts of distractions. But while here on earth, a commitment can only be expressed in light of challenges, in light of disagreements. And so that's not to say, hey, let's have a fight tonight. But rather that it's only really the way to get through them for me is to understand them as getting through this moment, getting through this difficulty is precisely how we express the love that we share and the love that we think God has given us.
Yeah, I mean, this is very insightful and good advice for us. We're still just getting started. So I think that something I've paused to reflect on this year is, wow, next year Dan won't go home to his own apartment. We'll be in the same place. And so sometimes that's really exciting, and sometimes it's, wow, we're going to be in this one apartment all the time. And so he can't just go up to his apartment to study and I can relax and do whatever in my living room space. That'll be joined next year. And so that's really exciting, but it's something to think about. And just thinking about this year, we've transitioned to a new city and we are so far away from our families out in the Midwest, and just thinking about that's really helpful advice, just to say, okay, we've gone through this together, helping that just be a great shared memory and great experience for the future, and knowing that we've been able to navigate our way in a new city, and it's been a really helpful experience that's brought us closer together.
I think one of the things that, being with Katie has again kind of, I wouldn't say that I've learned it for the first time. I think you kind of know it, but the importance of communication, I think that's, and again, kind of using the tools of the pre-Cana. I mean, I know myself now, well enough to know that I don't communicate well all the time. Kind of my reaction is to draw in and kind of close off. And so being aware of that, it kind of enables me to, hopefully avoid some of the interdynamics that, could be a pitfall, and to be able to communicate, because I think it is, that's, whether it's an engagement or a marriage or a friendship or, with your parents or whatever, the communication is the bedrock of it. So I think it's helped me to appreciate that more, more as we've gotten closer to being married.
Recently, I heard an elderly Jesuit say that what drew him to the Society of Jesus is not what holds him in his vocation today. And so when you consider your own relationships with one another and your lives, the busyness of life, your jobs, your careers, school, children, finances, all of the different things that come into play in our lives, how do you continue to honor your commitment and your relationship, this gift, this sacramental gift of God? How do you continue to honor this in your everyday lives?
I think that time and attention, and that's quantity and quality. It's very easy, I think, especially with kids, to have the marriage go to the back of the bus. That's sort of the last thing that gets taken care of. You've got jobs, you've got kids, you've got responsibilities in the community, and it's very easy to sort of let things simmer in the back of the bus and not pay attention. I'll tell you a funny story. We got a Wii a couple of years ago. You guys know what a Wii is. And I know that's stupid. I never play it. So the kids, they have those little avatars that are me's. They call them a me. So the kids spent hours developing their me's, and they said, "Mom, you want to see your me? We made a me for you. Fine, show me the me." So that looks good. I said, "Okay, so let me see Dad's me." And they showed me the me, and I was like, "Guys, what's with Dad's hair?" And they were like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "You put gray hair on Dad." And they were like, "Yeah." And I said, "Dad has black hair." And they were like, "Oh, Mom, like, you're scaring us, And Tom comes home from work, and I was like, "I'll be darned, he's got gray hair."
It's that picture from 20 years ago that she stares at all day.
And so it's like, it could be one of two things. Like, am I not paying enough attention to him? Or it could be that in my heart, he's really the man I married. It's the guy that I married. But I do think time and attention, quantity and quality. You can't ignore each other for 6 months and then think if you're going to go spend a weekend alone together, you're going to figure it out. I also think that asking the questions is important. Usually on or about our anniversary, we say, like, how's it going? Everything all right? Like, anything you wish was different? Anything you need? And we've had some really interesting conversations about how we might just tweak our our lives a little bit to say, I would like it if we were able to, do X, or, I gotta admit, it kind of bugs me when you do Y. And so paying attention to that stuff, I think, is really, really important, and maintenance and repair. Yeah.
I've learned over the years importance of the maxim, happy wife is a happy home. And there's a lot of truth to that. We have 4 kids, and if Juliet is content, despite the comings and goings and the challenges that the kids bring, the home is more content, more calm. As a spouse, you want to be supportive of each other. I'm reminded of Edie's comment earlier about, paraphrase, kind of being the best person you can be. Reminded of the movie that Julie reminded me of yesterday, Jerry Maguire. And the line in that movie where Tom Cruise says to his girlfriend, "You complete me." Nice. But it doesn't really work that way. You want to be the best person you can be and improve yourself. And by doing that, you're more of a, you don't need to rely on anyone else, including your spouse, to be the best person you can be. You really need her to complete him. So that's part of the outlook I keep in my marriage, that I want to support Juliet in what she does, her skills. She's extremely talented. Through that, she will be happier, and I'll be happier, the family will be happier, and we'll be able to serve, live out the Jesuit tradition, which we believe in very strongly in our house, as best we can.
You want to tell that communication story you were going to tell, or is that for with the old?
I don't remember that.
No, okay. I was just going to say, I think in addition to time and attention, communication is just a huge aspect of how to maintain a commitment to a sacred relationship during the day-to-day, right? So you've got a bunch of stuff to do, you're working, or you got to pay the bills, or someone has to walk the dog, and all these things. And there's a way in which a certain attentiveness is lost, right, in the text messaging back and forth. And I think that for us, what I think is really important is just at the end of the day, before you go to bed, how was your day? Like, not just tell me what you did throughout the day, but how did you actually enjoy your day? What was frustrating? And all that takes is 5 minutes, and I think that makes a world of a difference just for us to kind of unwind. It's like, what was your high low for today, or what did you enjoy about today? And there's so much mess, right, throughout your day, and there's so much stuff that you have to get through. And I think that if you can just focus on that, you can go to sleep nicely, right, and have a fresh start tomorrow. And I think that that's really important. Communication, asking how your day was, and then lastly, laughing. I think Edgar's a really funny person, and we enjoy just cracking jokes all the time. And I think it's a really important thing to just laugh at yourself. I break dishes all the time, and we don't have a dishwasher, and we resorted to plastic cups in the house because I just break dishes all the time. And there's a way in which sometimes Edgar will just take cups and throw them on the floor, and he's like, yeah, and it's just stupid things like that can actually take you away from whatever stress you just had. And I think that that's just an important thing to really revere kind of. You're not just married to this person that you love. You got a friend, you got a buddy all the time as well. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah, I would just say, well, we have, we're sort of amongst a lot of BC folks, so if I throw some Jesuit language out there, you guys are cool with the AMDGs and stuff, right? Ad majorem Dei gloriam. And so we have our union is a rather intellectual one. So we're always tossing out the word magis, right? Magis, greater, the more, right? For the greater glory of God. And so we have a foam bat in our apartment. that Alana took the word Magus and taped it onto the bat. And it's foam, so no harm done, right? And when we're down and when the day is tough, Alana will take the bat and hit me with this foam bat, right? As a way of reminding us that what our focus is on, right? And that the question we need to ask at the end of the day is, what did we do that was, in fact, for the greater glory of God, right? What did we do that brought out, that expressed God's love to one another and to the world?
The Magus Fungo bat, that's what we call it.
Magus bat.
It's a huge foam bat. It's kind of fun. And it's just fun to play baseball with in the house. But.
I can't begin to to improve on anything that they've said or even begin to know what it really means. I guess the things that I have learned in moving towards marriage, and Katie and I are in separate apartments, and so we, our days kind of ebb and flow, and we're in the same master's program, so we see each other at school, but then we go out for the rest of the afternoon and don't see each other. But one thing, as I can't remember who was speaking, but it came to me. Last summer I read The Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything, or Everything, by Jim Martin. I don't know if you all have read that or not, but it's fabulous. And but one of the things that he says in there, he talks about the distinction between human doings and human beings. And I read that line and it really stuck with me from the standpoint of, he said, we get so wrapped up in the doings that we forget about just being. And I think as Katie and I have moved to the city together and kind of had our lives intertwined more, I think just being attentive to who she is as a person and the things that excite her and make her happy and those things, in addition to obviously school and papers and things like that. But I think being attentive to the doing and the being and balancing that.
Yeah, I just can hope that we continue to laugh a lot and enjoy, our friendship just throughout the journey. And not much more to add to that long conversation.